Every life is shaped by encounters. Ordinary people came face to face with Jesus. No one who encountered him walked away unchanged. Their stories become our stories. Their questions become our questions. Their hope becomes our invitation. This is your opportunity to encounter Jesus.
All right. Man, what a wonderful time of worship. Hannah, thank you so much. What a powerful song. Man, that line, the wreckage of all of my choices. Man, but God. If you are here today and you have got some wreckage in your wake, I want you to know you're not alone. And this morning we're looking at a lady who had exactly that. And so as the kids are being dismissed, some reluctantly, some very excitedly, I want you to turn in your Bibles to John chapter 4. And we're going to look at a story this morning as we continue this series, John chapter 4. This is a story that many of us have heard, if not once, many times. And so we're really going to focus in on one particular part of this passage. And we're going to look at today the search for satisfaction. What we have been talking about for the last few weeks with this encounters with Jesus is listen, and this is important, okay? Because most people that I talk to, they would tell me that they know who Jesus is, that they have encountered him. But what I have found is that too many people have encountered not the true risen Christ, but a Jesus that they have been told about or that they've made up in their mind. And when you encounter the true living Son of God, something changes. And we find that evidence of change in this person's life, and we're also going to find that evidence of change in a testimony of someone here that's a part of Anchor that you'll see here in a few minutes. You know, I was reading a story about a man who, he owned a house, and man, he always wanted to own a house, and he finally owned a house, but after a few years, he started noticing that, man, his friends would come in and they would say, you know, my house has this and my house has that. And he said, you know, I want something better. So he called his real estate agent and said, hey, you know what, put this thing up to list because I want something better. And so his agent put some listings together. Man, one day he was looking through them and he found what he thought would be the perfect listing, man. It had plenty of room. It had great location. Everything that he would want in a house, it had, and man, he was excited. He said, I finally found it. He calls his real estate agent, said, this is it. This is the house I want. We need to go look at it. I want you to lock it in and get it. And the realtor looked at him and said, sir, that is your house, right? Isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting how quickly, how convinced we can become that satisfaction is always somewhere else? If I just had the next toy, if I could just make the next purchase, right? If I just had the better relationship, right? Then I will be satisfied. And so when you look at John chapter 4, you really find a lady, who is in the middle of that type of mentality that we are often tempted. And so I want you to look at John 4, and we're going to start in verse 3. It says, he left Judea and departed again into Galilee, and he must needs go through Samaria. Now, when you read verse 4, here's what you can equate that with in your mind. This is a divine appointment. This is a divine appointment. While we don't necessarily have time to dig into why that's such a big deal, Jewish people didn't travel through Samaria. They went around Samaria. Jesus says, I'm going through. There's a reason to that. It's a divine appointment. Verse 5, then cometh he to the city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Now Jacob's well was there. Jesus, therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour, or about noon. There cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus saith unto her, give me to drink. For his disciples were gone away into the city to buy meat. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, how is it that thou, being a Jew, askest a drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. Jesus answered and said unto her, if thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, give me to drink, thou wouldst have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. The woman saith unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence when hast thou that living water? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us a well, and drank thereof himself, and his children, and his cattle? Jesus answered and said to her, Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again, but whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water, springing up into everlasting life. The woman saith unto him, Sir, give me this water, that I thirst not, neither come hither to draw. Jesus saith unto her, Go, call thy husband, and come hither. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. Jesus answered and said to her, Thou hast well said, I have no husband. For thou hast had 5 husbands, he whom thou now hast is not thy husband. In that sayest thou truly. The woman saith unto him, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Jesus saith unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when you shall not worship in this mountain, nor yet in Jerusalem worship the Father. You worship, you know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. And the woman saith unto him, I know that Messiah cometh, which is called Christ. When he is come, he will tell us all these things. And Jesus saith unto her, I that speak unto thee am he. And upon this came his disciples, and marveled that he talked with a woman. Yet no man said, What seekest thou, or why talkest thou with her? The woman then left her water pot, and went her way into the city, and saith to the men, Come and see a man which told me all the things that I ever did. Is not this the Christ? Then they went out of the city and came unto him. In John chapter 4, Jesus meets a woman who has spent much of her life believing that satisfaction could be found somewhere else. Another relationship, another man, another attempt at finding what her soul was looking for. But every well that she drank from in her life had the same problem. She always got thirsty again. Jesus said to her, he said, Hey, whoever drinks of the water that I give will never thirst again. And listen, that's not just a statement. That is the story of her life. And for some of us, it's the story of our lives. She came to a literal well to get literal water because she needed water. But Jesus knew that there was another thirst in her life that she wasn't even recognizing. There was a deeper thirst in her life. There was a thirst that her relationships could not satisfy. There was a thirst that her religion could not satisfy. A thirst that all of her experiences in life had not brought satisfaction. It could not satisfy. And it's a thirst that only Jesus could satisfy. And this makes her story so relevant to connect with us today, because whether we realize it or not, and whether you realize it or not, every one of us knows what it's like to want more, to be thirsty for something more. And that really is the first point that we discover in her life, is that there is a thirst. The thirst. Have you ever had the thirst? Man, I can't tell you how many times I have thought in my mind, if I just once I get this new device, I'm finally going to be organized, right? Man, what a lie, right? I was told if I got the newest Apple iPhone that it would just help me organize my calendar. And guess what? You actually have to go in there and put stuff in the calendar. It doesn't help at all. You got to be organized, right? It doesn't do it for you. Have you ever had the thought in your mind, man, if I just had that car, if I just had that truck, if I just had that, right? I would finally I will arrive, right? And it always leaves us wanting. We all have the thirst. This woman who is from Samaria, she comes alone to this well in the middle of the day, which is our immediate hint that something is wrong. The women came to the well to draw water when it was very early, when it was not yet hot, when it was cool, and they did that to be prepared for the day, and this woman is coming later. The reason she's coming later, we can just assume safely, is that she really isn't welcome to come with the other women. She is bringing along with her a reputation, and Jesus speaks to her which is shocking to her because he was a Jew, she was Samaritan, he was a man, she is a woman. And so based on what we learn later in the passage, man, this complicated reputation is something that really, she is shocked that she would be spoken to by a man. He is crossing some very deep cultural boundaries, these walls that have been set up. And yet Jesus begins a conversation. And almost immediately, he moves from this physical thirst to a spiritual thirst in her life. And in verse 10, he says, if you knew the gift of God, and if you knew who it was that was saying to you, give me a drink, then you would ask him to give you a drink of living water. And she is thinking about water, and Jesus is thinking about her soul. She is thinking about a physical need that will bring satisfaction, and Jesus is thinking about something much deeper, and this happens to us all the time. We think we know what we need. Listen to me. We say things like, man, if I could just make more money. Man, if my marriage were just better. If I could just get married, right? If I could get out of this situation. If I could be respected by people better, if people would recognize if I could finally accomplish this goal, right? And then I would finally be happy. And sometimes some of those desires are legitimate. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. The problem is when we think that something temporary can satisfy us when it cannot. We ask things to give us security. We ask things to give us fulfillment. We ask things to give us satisfaction. And they cannot do it. And Jesus says in verse 13, if you drink of this water, you're going to get thirsty again. And listen to me. That might be the best description of what the world promises. Because on the label of everything that we believe the world can bring satisfaction, on the side of everything it says, hey, I will see you back here tomorrow because it's not going to satisfy. And so what Jesus begins to do here, and here's what I want you to pay attention. He begins to expose her for what she actually needs. Now, this is uncomfortable, right? And if you've ever been exposed by Christ, you know it's not a super comfortable feeling at the beginning. But here's what's important. This is what we need. And point number 2 is the exposure. The exposure. Listen, eventually, everything that we use to satisfy ourselves eventually will point us to our emptiness. It eventually just confronts us in the forefront of our minds and our hearts. We say, this is not working, right? And so this woman responds in verse 15, hey, give me this water so that I'll never thirst again and I won't have to come back here and draw water all the time at noon when nobody else is around and it's hot. She's not getting it, right? She's basically saying, if you can make my life easier, then I'm down, let's do it, right? And really, this is how a lot of people approach Jesus, if we're honest. Well, if Jesus can fix my problem, then I'll go to church. If Jesus can make things better, then I'll jump into the fold. And listen, Jesus cares about the burdens of your life and my life. That we know, but Jesus has done something far greater than just come to make your life more convenient. Okay, listen to me, right? In verse 16, the conversation suddenly changes. Jesus just drives the point home and he says, all right, go get your husband, come back, and we'll have a conversation. That seems abrupt. Listen, they're talking about water. Now Jesus starts talking about relationships. Why? Because he knows what she is searching for satisfaction in. She says, I don't have a husband. And he says, yeah, well said. You don't, because you've had 5, and the one you're with now is not your husband. Now here's what's important. Obviously, it's not hard to miss the pattern in this woman's life. But here's what is so important. Jesus' exposure has a purpose. And I want to go ahead and jump into it. Point number 3 is this, the purpose. Listen, I need you to hear this. when Jesus wants to expose your failure, when he wants to expose your rebellion, when he wants to expose your failure to look to him but to look to earthly things. Maybe it's an item, maybe it's a car, maybe it's money, maybe it's popularity, maybe it's acceptance, maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's a person, and you think this person will suddenly bring satisfaction in your heart. When Jesus exposes that, it is not to bring shame. We have got to hear that. Because if you hear that people want to see inside my heart. They want me to be exposed. God wants me to be exposed and vulnerable. Man, that's going to bring shame. Shame is not the tool that God uses. Okay? Shame will cause you to think that, I need to stay away from being open and honest with God and with people. I need to stay away from that. Shame is not the purpose. The purpose in Jesus' exposure is to bring healing. Okay? And some of us need to hear this today. Because there are things in our hearts, in our minds, in our lives that we have been carrying, and we have kept them just buried down deep. And every time that the Word of God or that someone in a spiritual conversation, every time that we think that thing is being confronted, we want to pull back and say, no, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want that to be exposed. And Jesus says, I want that to be exposed so I can deal with it and I can heal it. We heard it this morning in Shauna's story. The things that she wanted to keep hidden, her abuse and addiction, the things that had damaged her for years. She said, I want to keep this hidden. But it was when it was exposed that God was able to do the healing. And this is what Jesus is doing in this woman's life. He wants to confront the one thing that she would think he knows nothing about. And immediately what she does is she says, hey, you must be a prophet if you know this. So she wants to flip the conversation into a spiritual conversation instead of dealing with what he just brought up, right? Jesus basically said, hey girl, are you a sinner? And she said, well, tell me what church I should go to. That's what she's doing, right? He says, hey lady, you have been failing. You have been looking in the wrong place, and you have been just inviting the destruction and damage into your own heart, into your own mind. And she says, well, what songs should we sing when we worship? That's what she's doing. And Jesus says, no, I'm not going to just let that slide by. I want to deal with the depths of your heart. I want to deal with the things that are hurting you, not to shame you, but to bring healing into your life. And I love the way Jesus does this, man, because he knows everything. He knows the relationships, right? He knows the history. He knows the sin. He knows the disappointment in this woman's life. And listen, heads up, he knows it in your life. There is nothing that you have done. There's nothing that's been done to you. There's nothing that you've been through or been around that Jesus is unaware of. And if you feel right now, you're like, oh man, this is uncomfortable. I don't want to deal with this. Can I just tell you something? Jesus doesn't want you to feel shame. He wants to heal you from it. He wants to heal you of it. And the beautiful thing is he wants to use it for his glory and your good to do something in your life that you could never do on your own by going to the next thing for satisfaction. Man, he uncovers her life because he wants to give her something better. And that is grace. That is grace in action. Sometimes we think that conviction is God being cruel to us, right? Well, I thought that God wanted me to feel happy and comfortable all the time, right? I thought that I was supposed to always just feel like nothing's ever wrong. Did you know that conviction is mercy? Hello. Conviction is the mercy of God on display in our lives. Man, if you go to your doctor tomorrow and say, Doc, for the last 3 weeks, I've been having this terrible pain in the left side of my chest, and I need to figure it out. And let's say he discovered something serious, but he said, I know what's wrong, but I don't want to make you uncomfortable, so let's just continue on, right? I'm going to tell you that everything looks great, right? That would not be kindness, right? The loving thing is for him to be honest. And listen, Jesus is honest with this woman, not because he hates her, not because he is going to refuse to accept her, Not because she has no further purpose in life, because she's been used and she just doesn't have anything to offer. That is a lie from the enemy. That is not it. He does it because he loves her. He loves her too much to let her keep pretending that the well that she is going to is working. He brings it to this very uncomfortable realization. He says, this is not satisfying you. This is the thing that you keep going back to is not healing you. It is not making you free, right? This relationship cannot carry all of the weight and expectation that you're putting on it. Jesus, man, here's what we often want Jesus to come alongside of us and say, hey, Jesus, this is my well, right? This is what I'm putting my bucket down into to get some satisfaction. Can you just bless it a little bit? And Jesus says, no, you are missing the point. That well will never satisfy. Can I just tell you, the story of human history, right, is that humanity has gone to a well to satisfy a thirst that the well can never satisfy. God says it in Jeremiah. He says it to the Israelites. He says, man, you're thirsty, so you go and you drink out of a broken cistern. It can never satisfy you. It's constantly leaking. Instead of coming to me, the only one who can satisfy. Jesus says that I'm not just going to give you water. I am going to give you living water. And that living water is not a religion, is not a practice, it's not a spiritual discipline. That living water is God himself that he puts inside of us when we meet Jesus Christ. The spring of life. Christians still have struggles. Christians still have lonely seasons. Christians still have disappointments. Jesus is talking here about the deepest thirst that is in her soul, the deepest thirst that is in your soul and my soul. And he's talking about reconciliation with God. He's talking about spiritual life, eternal life. He's talking about the presence of God within us. And he says, the water that I give you will be like a well of water springing up into everlasting life. This woman keeps going back to an external source of water. She keeps thinking of the well. Well, this is Jacob's well, right? This is an important well. This is an important place, right? And the old way of thinking for her is, I need something out there to make me whole. And Jesus says, no, I will give life that springs from within, the Holy Spirit of God. This is not self-help, okay? This is not, hey, follow these 10 steps to a better life. This isn't Joel Osteen, right? This is regeneration, right? This is spiritual life given by God. Jesus is not saying to her, hey, girl, you need to start choosing better men. That is not the message, right? He is saying, that may be some wisdom going forward, right? But he is saying your deepest problem is not just your bad relationship choices. Your deepest problem is your spiritual thirst, and nothing's going to satisfy it. Only I can. And listen, sometimes we reduce Christianity to, hey, just stop doing bad things and start doing good things. Can I just tell you that if that was all that Christianity was, then this woman could just make a checklist and start working. That's not the point, right? Christianity is when we cannot manufacture ourselves. And listen, when you find what satisfies, you stop living the same way. I want you to watch this testimony from Roy here at our church about what God, this very thing that God has done in his life.
Really, I guess I spent my whole life looking for, I don't think I ever really knew what I was looking for. I was just looking for something different. Growing up, I didn't want to be at home. I was out doing something always. And as soon as I got the ability to leave, to travel, to drive, and to get away, I did. And I just continued that. And I learned to drink at an early age. My father he wasn't an abusive man. He loved me, and he still does today, and so did my mom. But there were just some things. And so at an early age, I would say probably 9 or 10 is when I started sneaking drinks. And then tobacco use probably started around 12. And then it just kind of progressed through there all the way through high school. And then, of course, in the Marine Corps, that was kind of a given. You drank. And we drank about everything. But I guess the alcohol and is really the one thing that I used to get away from and run from. My aunt and uncle took me to church as a young man, and the church was, it was hard for me to understand. It was a little scary. The tongues, and there were just a lot of things that I didn't understand. That was very confusing. But the most part, the family aspect of it, everybody was close. All the families were close. They did things together all the time. And that was not what I had. And so I didn't fit in. And I never felt like I fit in. And so when I was old enough to make my parents to listen to me and make my own decisions about not going, I quit going. And I've had a lot of people through my life ask me to come to church. Co-workers and friends, and I just never felt that it was where I needed to be. I always told my aunt and uncle in my adult life, God gave me these kids and this land to take care of, and He knows I'm working Monday through Saturday to pay for it all, and Sunday's my only day off, and it's the only time I've got to catch up around here. And so I don't think He's mad at me if I'm not in church every time the door's open. And that was really my attitude. It's not that I didn't believe in God. It's not that I didn't trust in God. I didn't know God. I didn't have a relationship with God. And so the drinking just carried. I mean, I just never quit. I what they call a functioning alcoholic. And I got up and went to work every day. I paid my bills. I took care of my kids. But I missed a lot. I relied on other people to help me with my kids a lot. They had everything they needed, most of the things that they wanted, but they didn't always have me in the picture because the dollar bill was always the most important thing. And when you drink, you spend. And so I had to make more. And that's kind of how it went. I don't really remember the exact time frame, but I guess in 18 or 19, I was retired. I was forced to retire, and that's when things kind of spun. I started doing things that I hadn't done before. Got into the drugs, and things kind of went downhill. I allowed some really good people in my life at that time. I hurt them and I pushed them away, and I lost some relationships that some I've gotten back and some I may not ever be able to get back. But I didn't realize that it was bad. I didn't realize what had gone on. And I got a picture on my phone. So I got this picture somebody dear to me sent, and when I seen the picture, I was like, "When did you take that? Like, that ain't me." Like, yeah, that's you, and it made me sick. And I guess, I mean, it still took several weeks, maybe months. I can't remember the exact timing of everything. Before I decided I can't do this anymore. If that's me, that's not who I want to be. And Pastor Tim and his wife invited me up here for, I believe it started on Wednesday nights. At that time, the men and the women were separate. And when I walked in the door, it felt different. I didn't feel that anxiety that I normally had felt. And the people that I met, that Tim and Deanna introduced me to, and everybody was just so open and friendly. And then that's where it kind of started. And man, since then, well, to be honest, at that point in time, I had lost some things, but I hadn't lost it all. And after I started coming to church full time, and I rededicated my life, I got saved at Ironman. Tim Lee, I believe, was giving his spiel. I remember that. I had no plans of going up front. I hadn't even thought about it, you know. And when he got through speaking and had the invitation, I don't know. It just hit me. Tim was standing next to me, and I put my arm out and said, "Excuse me," and walked out to the aisle. When I got to the aisle, I hesitated, like it hit, and felt the hand on my shoulder, and it was Tim, and he said, "Come on, I'll go with you," and that was it. But that started everything, I still ended up losing some things that were really important to me. But had I lost them prior to being here, I don't know what would have happened, where I would have been. I feel that those things were going to be taken from me anyway. I was going to lose them anyway. I deserved it. This was self-inflicted all the way. But I feel like it was God's perfect timing. He got me to a place where, although it hurt, I was able to get through it, and I just kept coming, and then the people in this church involving me in the outreaches, the Wayfarer. I told Tim, I said, I'll walk with you, but I'm not knocking on doors. And he said, I don't care. I don't need you. I just want you to hang out. And I don't know how he did it, but I was knocking on doors in like no time. And now I enjoy it. I miss it. This heat and the weather, it really takes away. But, you know, I got involved in that and got involved with the refuge and, you know, the Christmas stuff and just really anything I want to get involved with. The church has let me get involved. And that means a lot, like a lot. I mean, I've been here 5 years, I think. I came shortly after you started. And I mean, these people have allowed me to stand up the last 2 years to be voted for as a deacon. Me? That's crazy. But it means the world. It means the world. And so I guess the big thing is to find out that after all these years, after all these years of me knowing that God was real, but ignoring him at the same time and denying him my life, when I was ready, he was there. And it didn't matter all the things I had done. It's just, I don't know. It's a feeling, and I get it every time I walk in here. And I'm so grateful for the people that God put in my life. And he started placing those people in my life during my addiction, during those last few years. And it's just obvious. If you just look back, there's no doubt. He placed these people in my life. He was setting us up, and there's just no doubt whatsoever. So he replaced everything that I may have ever thrown away in my whole life tenfold.